We know what we did. This elite, they got bloated with their own propaganda, and now they're vomiting it all over the country. Patriotism turned out to be hatred of others, whereas it should be love to your own country. Putin is laughing out loud when they tell him about the Western values. He's laughing in their face. At once everything got outdated. What happened? They destroyed the future. Nobel Prize laureate Dmitry Muratov speaks with Uldis Tirans, film director and editor-in-chief of Rigas Laikas magazine in Riga, Latvia. Is there a collective responsibility? I would put this question differently. The elite that is supposed to educate, enlighten and feed the people, that through its blood and sweat is supposed to spread knowledge, this elite carries a huge responsibility. I mean, this Russian elite, first and foremost, it is responsible to its people and the world. The elite has to make large steps because it wears diapers. It wets its pants, fearing Putin. Have you seen that Russian Security Council meeting? None of them could open their mouths but to agree. So this elite has a massive responsibility to the people, and primarily this responsibility has to do with the propaganda that spreads like radiation. This radiation penetrates everywhere. 24/7 they transmit this radiation from all TV screens onto the people. The most terrifying thing in the elite's behavior is that first it created this propaganda of war, and then it believed in it itself. Psychologists and psychiatrists call it self-induction. This elite, they're bloated with their own propaganda, and now they're vomiting it all over the country. See, there are two things. Firstly and majorly, Russian people are public sector employees, and they consider the Russian president to be their employer. This phenomenon must be taken into account. And secondly, my country has an enormous trauma of the 20th century. It lost about 100 million people over the 20th century. World War I, World War II, multiple famines, Stalin, horrible medicine, etc. Approximately 100 million people dead. Therefore, the Russian people constantly unite around their government because no one ever had such national losses in history. And what does the government do? With utter cynicism, it uses words that break through any armor of reason. They use terms fascists, Nazis, denazification. These words tear through people's mind because all of them are genetically connected with all those losses. And on top of that, the government runs this civil event called Immortal Regiment outside people's window. This is the cause of such an incredible influence of these words and the government. When mass media are destroyed, it means they don't trust their audience. It is the people. We don't have a parliament. We don't have parliamentary elections. The parliament is appointed. In this situation, the media are a sort of parliament. They represented those who are not represented by the member of the parliament, no matter whether it's higher or lower house of it. And these media are shut down. So this is their distrust to the public. So these two issues, the absence of courts and the impossibility to challenge actions of the government, and blunt censorship and shutting down many leading news outlets. It means that there is no chance to find a different opinion anywhere. I would like you to quote Professor Pyatigorski again. Only what is prepared for understanding can be understood. Exactly. And who is preparing it for understanding if everything is shut down? So we are back to the question about the collective responsibility of the people. Our newspaper decided that we are looking at this war only through the eyes of our special correspondents, because we trust them, because they are the people who went through many hardships. Yes, Elena Kostyuchenko, our correspondent, is probably one of the best European reporters. We believe her. Elena Kostyuchenko, special correspondent of Novaya Gazeta newspaper. Since the beginning of the war, she reported on Kherson, Nikolaev and Odessa. All her reports were removed from the website of Novaya Gazeta due to the requirements of the Russian censorship agency Roskomnadzor. Why can we trust Elena Kostyuchenko? Because her level of empathy and her level of courage is incredible. She approaches an event up close, not reading about it and then retelling the story. This earns trust. Elena zooms in every detail and makes every life extremely and utterly unique. When she shows the button that is left of a person, this is how one should speak. That's it. This is all that is left. And it used to be a whole life. And God created a man, and someone's geopolitical whim killed him. Putin stopped trusting the West, primarily and finally, after the war, in August of 2008, the war with Georgia. President Bush told him that everything is all right and there will be no war. Yet Putin's intelligence brought him intercepts of telephone calls with Saakashvili, Georgia's president. They proved it differently. In my view, back then, Putin finally realized that talks about values are nothing. It's zero. He's laughing out loud when they tell him about Western values. He just laughs. Because he, Putin, bought 16 high-caliber Western European politicians for the board of directors of the Russian state-owned companies. A couple of chancellors, few prime ministers, a couple of presidents. He put them in those boards, paying them few millions of dollars a year. And they happily accepted. And he was laughing out loud because he doesn't believe in values, but he knows their price. So therefore, excuse me, there were certain things that the West did that influenced Putin's policy. If you think that the West is nice and innocent, it is not exactly so. Many times, ministers of foreign affairs of different countries used to come to our editorial office because they needed to report to their voters that they visited the newspaper that is considered to be in opposition to the current regime. And right after this visit, they would go to hold talks with Gazprom, Putin or Lavrov, saying, let's reduce it a little here and lower it a little there, and we will hardly notice it over there, as they say in the famous Russian movie The Election Day. So they have hardly noticed it, right? Right. So what do you want now? He doesn't trust anyone. And gradual isolation from the global processes drove Russia to Russia as a fortress concept. It is one of those conspiracy theory concepts laid out in a book with the same title. It says that Russia can live without the West, whereas the West can't live without Russia, that Russia has everything to develop on its own. Approximately, this is how Putin arranged his entrance to this notorious geopolitics. Yes, he showed some proclivity to this, and what started on 24th of February, there is no return for this. Nothing can be reversed. There are other geopolitics. They're called friendships. It is very important to keep friends in Ukraine, Europe, in Riga, Latvia. It is very important not to start a civil war between us. We understand the culpability of the government, we understand what we've done, but we must understand that for the next generation to fix it, to fix this horrible business, we need to be friends and have relationships beyond the governments and despite their politics. Leo Tolstoy said that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. Today, in my view, the word patriotism should be replaced with geopolitics. Geopolitics replace the people's happiness because the people are given greatness, skipping the stage of welfare. It is a very complicated story. Therefore, we need to say, here is the world, and now we're going to get up from our knees and we make the world kneel. And what do these Putin's words mean when he says, our response will be unlike anything you had in the history of your country? He addressed these words to Americans. And what is behind the words of your favorite poet, the one you quoted, Sergei Lavrov? when he says that World War III will be a nuclear one. Do you finally understand what his poem is about? It is about no resurrection. Why? Because ashes don't resurrect. You got it now, right? Perfect.